I stood in the center of the living room at 10 p.m. on Christmas night, screaming at my brother because he had propped the front door wide open in a 10-degree snowstorm just to air out the smell of turkey, and my indoor-only cat Barnaby was nowhere to be found. My name is Elena, and Barnaby isn't just a pet to me. He's been my primary source of comfort through 3 years of health struggles and a messy divorce. He's a timid 7-pound tabby who is terrified of the wind, let alone a blizzard. My family knows this. They know he is my shadow. But to my brother, Marcus, and my parents, a cat is just an accessory that shouldn't interfere with the vibe of their Christmas celebration. The day had started out tense, as it always does. My parents pride themselves on their perfect holiday hosting, which usually involves a lot of expensive wine and a lot of ignoring my boundaries. I had told everyone repeatedly to keep the mudroom door shut because Barnaby is a door dasher when he's stressed. Marcus, who thinks boundaries are just suggestions he hasn't ignored yet, decided that the house was too stuffy after dinner. Without saying a word to anyone, he didn't just crack a window. He propped the heavy oak front door wide open with a decorative reindeer and walked away to get another drink. I didn't realize it for 20 minutes. When I walked into the foyer and felt the sub-zero blast of air hitting the hallway, my heart stopped. I saw the door standing open to the dark, snowy night, and I saw the empty spot on the rug where Barnaby usually sits. I let out a sound that wasn't even human, a guttural, panicked cry that brought everyone running. But instead of the "I'm so sorry, let's find him" response any normal person would give, Marcus just rolled his eyes. He actually stood there, swilling his scotch, and told me to stop being a drama queen because the cat was probably just hiding in a closet. The density of his apathy was chilling. He didn't even put down his drink. I started frantically checking every room, under every bed, behind every piece of tinsel-covered furniture, calling Barnaby's name until my voice cracked. Nothing. I went back to the front door and saw a single set of small paw prints leading off the porch and into the deep, fresh snow. The panic that set in was forensic. I could feel the exact moment my adrenaline spiked into a flight-or-fight response. I looked at my parents, who were sitting on the sofa looking annoyed that I was ruining the mood of the dessert course. My mother had the audacity to ask if I could wait until morning to go look for him because she didn't want the neighbors to see me running around like a crazy person with a flashlight. It was Christmas night. It was freezing, and my terrified, defenseless cat was out in a blizzard, and my own mother was worried about the neighbors' perception of my composure. I realized then that I was entirely on my own. These people didn't see a living being in danger. They saw an inconvenience to their aesthetic perfection. I grabbed my heavy coat, my boots, and a high-powered tactical flashlight, and I stepped out into the dark. I didn't even look back at them. I could hear Marcus laughing in the background, making a joke about how the cat probably wanted to get away from my nagging anyway. That comment was the evil ingredient that turned my fear into a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just searching for a cat. I was searching for the last piece of my heart that these people hadn't managed to break yet. I stepped off the porch and into the knee-deep snow, the wind whipping the flashlight beam around like a strobe light. I knew Barnaby wouldn't survive the night in these temperatures. I had 6 hours to find him, or I would be spending the rest of my life knowing my family was responsible for his death. The next 6 hours were a psychological and physical hell that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I spent from 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. crawling through the undergrowth of my parents' 2-acre property and the surrounding woods, screaming Barnaby's name until my throat felt like it was lined with broken glass. The snow was coming down so hard I could barely see 5 feet in front of me. Every shadow looked like a crouching cat. Every rustle of the wind in the pines sounded like a faint meow. My boots were soaked through, and I couldn't feel my toes anymore, but I couldn't stop. The thought of him curled up in a ball, freezing to death because Marcus wanted to air out the house, kept me moving. Around midnight, I saw a light flicker in the house. I thought for a brief, delusional second that my family had finally realized the gravity of the situation and were coming out to help. But when I looked toward the window, I saw my parents and Marcus sitting around the kitchen table, eating leftover pie and laughing. They had literally turned the outdoor floodlights off because the light was bothersome while they were trying to watch a movie. They had actively made it harder for me to find him. I stood there in the dark, shivering violently, and realized that the people inside that house were more alien to me than the woods I was standing in. I went back to the search, focusing on the crawl space under the neighbor's porch. I was on my hands and knees in the frozen mud, shining my light into the cobwebs and darkness, when I heard a tiny, tremulous sound. It wasn't a meow. It was a shiver. I followed the sound to a woodpile near the edge of the property line. And there, tucked deep between two frozen logs, was a patch of orange fur. Barnaby was so cold he couldn't even move. He was staring at me with wide, glazed eyes, his whiskers covered in tiny icicles. I reached in, ignoring the way the jagged wood tore at my hands, and pulled him out. He was like a block of ice. I tucked him inside my coat, directly against my skin, and felt the absolute crushing weight of relief. But that relief was immediately followed by a towering, white-hot rage. I walked back toward the house, my legs shaking with exhaustion and cold. I could see them through the window, still festive, still perfect. They hadn't even checked the door to see if I was still alive. I didn't go in through the mudroom. I walked straight to the front door, the one Marcus had left open, and I kicked it open with every ounce of strength I had left. The sound of the door hitting the wall was like a thunderclap. My family jumped, wine spilling onto the rug. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, covered in mud, snow, and blood from my scratched hands, clutching the shivering bundle inside my coat. The density of the silence in that room was absolute. My father started to say something, some platitude about "thank goodness you found it," but I cut him off with a look that I think actually scared him. I didn't want their apologies. I didn't want their holiday cheer. I wanted them to understand exactly what they had almost destroyed. "I am leaving," I said, my voice sounding like it was coming from a stranger. "And I am never coming back." Marcus tried to chuckle, a nervous, weak sound. "Come on, Elena, don't be so dramatic. The cat's fine. We were just about to come out and look, we just wanted to finish the film." I looked at him, my own brother, and I realized he was a hollow shell of a human being. I looked at my parents, who were already looking at the mud I'd tracked onto the rug instead of checking if I had frostbite. "You didn't even leave the lights on," I whispered. "You sat in here and ate pie while I was out there in a blizzard. You treated my grief and my fear like an annoyance." My mother stood up, her face arranging itself into that disappointed mask she's used to control me my whole life. "Elena, you're being very selfish. It's Christmas. You've ruined the entire evening with this obsession." That was the final nail. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I walked up the stairs, grabbed my overnight bag and Barnaby's carrier, and I walked back down. I didn't even pack everything. I just needed to get him to a warm place. My father tried to block the door, saying I was too emotional to drive in the snow. I pushed past him with a strength I didn't know I had. I drove 2 hours back to my own apartment in the middle of the night, the heater on full blast, Barnaby finally starting to purr against my chest. I spent the rest of Christmas Day at an emergency vet, getting him treated for mild hypothermia. He's going to be okay, but our relationship with that side of the family is dead. I have blocked all of them. My mother has been leaving concerned voicemails with my friends, claiming I had a psychotic break over a cat and that I need professional help. They are already rewriting the story to make me the villain. They are telling everyone that I ran off into the night to seek attention. But I have the photos of my frozen hands, the vet bill, and the memory of them laughing through the window. I realized that Barnaby didn't escape Christmas. He escaped a house of people who don't know how to love. I'm spending New Year's Eve with a heated blanket, a healthy cat, and a phone that is finally, mercifully, silent. I lost a family this Christmas, but I saved the only thing that actually mattered. So, what do you think? Was I overreacting by cutting them off over a cat? Or was the escape just the final proof of how little they value me? If your family let your pet out in a blizzard and then went back to eating pie, would you ever step foot in their house again? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're glad Barnaby is safe, and make sure to subscribe for more Reddit Tales Daily. See you in the next one.